Good morning, everybody. Nice to have you here again for our monthly product release review. My name is Kelsey Lopez. I am one of the work management experts based in Namer, and I am so glad to be going through some new things that have come out in the past month, or some things we weren't able to cover in last month's session, that you might have missed. I.DO, we are Asana Solutions partners. So just as a quick reminder, we both sell licenses and consulting services. We're here to help you make sure you are staying up to date with the product, your workflows are efficient and working. And if you have any questions about leveraging your licenses, getting the most out of them, don't hesitate to reach out to us and we can help you guys. So the goal of today's session is just like I said, we're going to review what has been new, some important updates, good news, exciting features, and maybe some other just anecdotal things that we've noticed that we thought you guys might enjoy seeing. This session is being recorded, so it will be shared with those who are interested and also available on our YouTube channel. So feel free to watch it again later or share it around with your team if there was anything that you think they should know as well. My colleague Apolline is on the call, and she'll be managing the Q&A. So if you have any questions, feel free to post in the Q&A at any point during the call. And if I see anything, I'll also be happy to answer those during our session today. And then at the very end, I'll also do just a quick wrap up as well to see if there's any questions that you wanted to ask before we head out for the rest of our day. So without further ado, I will share my screen and we will start taking a look at what is new in Asana. So this first feature I'm going to talk about is available for enterprise plans. So just as a quick note for access, you may have already known and been using script actions and rules, but those have to date only applied within tasks themselves. Those are now available in portfolios. So very exciting. If you actually want to create a rule in your portfolios, we're going to go take a look at this here. If we add a new rule, you will see in your actions menu at the very bottom, you have this external service run script. So a little bit different navigation from what you're used to in your tasks where you have external actions as a tab you have to click on. This is just all the way at the bottom for run script. So I'm not going to go over today the details of how to post your script action here, but know that we do have some script actions available on our website that you're able to take a look at. And Apolline can also share those details in a follow-up email or in our chat here. All right, then the next one is a change that you may have already noticed. It's not necessarily new this month, but we wanted to take a moment to talk about it briefly. And that is the big change to the way that our custom fields are showing within the task details pane, especially when a task is in multiple projects. So you may have noticed this, that the projects that a task is now multi-homed within, these can now be collapsed and expanded. There's a few benefits that I just want to point out to this. It was a huge change, kind of a shock for a lot of people. And I will confess that at first I did not like this change. It was just not what I was used to, and it's such a big change. But we have now grown at i.DO to actually really like this change. What is so helpful about this is first visibility. If you have a lot of custom fields in your projects, those custom fields were just taking up so much real estate on your screen. You can now collapse these and you'll be able to get straight to your description box immediately. So first of all, that's super helpful. You can then drill into the specific custom fields that you do need to focus on. So if you are in a task that's multi-homed, you can expand the one that you want and just focus on those instead of having to see all of them at the same time. Now, if you have a task that is in your library field and it's shared across multiple projects, then any change you make on one, of course, you would see in the other. So you will see that global field, the library field, show up in both places, and you could change it in either spot. The other benefit I want to point out is you used to not really have control over the order of the custom fields that were showing on this detail pane, the second that it was multi-homed specifically. So you may know that you can control the order of custom fields within your task detail panes when you go into your customize area and we look at our fields right here. So we can drag these into a particular order so that when we show it on our task detail panes, it shows up in that view. However, once we had multi-homing into play, we essentially had no control over which project got to say the order of those custom fields. And so now with this capacity here, we can focus on the order within a particular project. So the Sydney order is respected, the team meeting order is respected, and so on. So big change, big visual impact, but hopefully you will grow to appreciate the real estate you are getting back within your detail pane. All right, the next one we're going to talk about is when you convert a task into a project, you can now assign roles in the rule itself. So we're going to take a look at, whoops, we're going to get rid of that. We're going to take a look at one project where we do have a rule set up to convert tasks into projects. We'll take a look at this one. And so what we have the ability to do here is when we pick a project template where there are roles defined, which we're using the industrial projects template. So let's go set that up for this one. Industrial projects. Let's find this template. When we edit this template, just as a quick reminder, you have the ability, as long as you're on the advanced plan, to define project roles. So we can add a project manager role to this template. And instead of assigning these tasks to a specific user, we can now select that project role from within the template. So far, none of this is brand new. What is new is that if we go back to that rule we were just taking a look at in our industrial projects, we'll open this up again. What we will see here is now we're seeing the project roles that we've created so that we can dynamically assign them. So again, we can choose to list a specific user. So let's say we want that to go to Michelle every time this rule is run. Or if we want to add conditional branching here, we want it to be Michelle if project type is A, but we want it to be Larry if project type is B. We can dive into that branching here in the rule. You do also have the capacity here to choose some dynamic assignments. You can use AI here, which interesting note about this is that don't forget in your AI instructions, you can reference a capacity plan or workload. And so you could ask AI to go reference that to decide who has the capacity to take this on. When it comes to our dynamic variables here, you can also choose either the rule triggerer, the task creator, or the assignee. So these parts aren't too new. You've seen these in other places with our variables within rules, but now we can do this directly within the project role. So this is very exciting, huge update to project templates that people have been asking for a long time. There's one other part of this I also want to discuss. Even more exciting, we can also add a people field and we can define the project manager here in the people field. So if we set this to Marie, for example, and then we want to convert this one into a project, let's go back to our rule. We are now also able in our dynamic field here, we have custom fields and we have that project manager. So we have lots of flexibility here now to be able to assign roles to project templates from automation. So we're all very excited internally about this. Wonderful. Okay, the next one we are going to talk about is again within rules, where you now have scheduled triggers, and there's been a few updates on this. So we'll still stay in this project, and we'll just take a look as if we were adding a brand new rule. We will start from scratch. And what we were taking a look at is this scheduled time occurs. This is new for us. So what we're able to do is now run this rule on a scheduled trigger. So if we want this to run every day, every week, every month, or we can specify something custom here. And you can even put a specific time. So when scheduled time occurs, very exciting. Now the thing to remember is this is going to run on every task at this scheduled time. Unless, and this is what's new, you select a scope. So this is a brand new area in the rules in Asana. So We're not sure exactly where they're going to be taking this, but we assume this change is going to impact other updates in the future. So I encourage you to take a look and understand how this is working. So what this select scope is doing, it is essentially like the criteria, the branching that we were doing in our standard rules that we're used to. So rather than having this rule run at the cadence we want it to on every single task, we can say we only want it to run on the incomplete tasks. Or we have this add filter button. We only want it to run on tasks assigned to ABC person or the ones that haven't been modified or haven't, here we go. We have these options here to look at for last modified. That's an interesting one for a lot of people right now. Or any custom field. So for our priority, if it's high. And so you can see here, we can put multiple things in this scope and we can really drill into what we're hoping to achieve with this scheduled trigger rather than it just running on every single task if that's not what you're looking for. So very good, again, very big change. This new concept of scope within rules. This is probably going to apply to other updates in the future that we at i.DO don't yet know about, but very exciting. Awesome. Okay, now I also just have a quick update. I don't have anything to screen share on this one in particular. And this one is specifically for Enterprise Plus customers or Enterprise customers with the permissions add-on if you are using the role-based access control feature. You have something called Release Preview where you can get access to features a little bit earlier than they're actually launched. And so what you have access to in related to the RBAC controls is if you are using that feature to create certain permissions for your users, the new things that are available are to find and access the shared within organization tasks. So should guests be able to find those? Should all of your members be able to find those? Similarly, shared with organization projects, public to organization teams, and shared with organization portfolios. So those four categories of public items. Now within RBAC, you can actually decide if guests can access those things, and you can even create permission groups where certain licensed users can't actually access everything shared with the organization. So take a look at that in your release preview if you are an Enterprise Plus customer or Enterprise customer with the permissions add-on. Lovely. Okay, we also have some subtask changes, also very controversial at this point in time. When you go look at a subtask, if you've been using Asana for a while, you will know that typically a subtask, whoops, that's a blank subtask. Let's look at a better one. The subtasks themselves are not considered part of the project. And a big complaint was that when you had a subtask assigned to yourself, you didn't have the project column filled out. And that was why the subtask wasn't considered a part of the project. The big change is that now subtasks are actually showing the parent project here on the screen. So again, very hotly debated. Do we like this update? Do we not like this update? The jury is still out. The reason it can be very confusing, I would say, is probably more so for people who have been using Asana for a long time, because we are used to not seeing the project here. And there are a lot of use cases where you want a subtask to be both a subtask, but then also actually showing in the project itself. And so now it can be kind of unclear, okay, is this in the project or is this just the subtask? There is a way to distinguish the difference. You'll notice if you try to remove it, you actually cannot. You have that little warning sign that this is coming from the parent task value. Now, if we decide to add this subtask to the project itself, if I select it here, the slight change and difference you'll notice is you can now see the sections. And so we can select which section we want this task to be appearing in. So you'll notice that subtask, if you're not familiar with how this functions, if you add a subtask to a project, it's actually going to appear here in the main list. And you could put this in a specific section and it shows in both places. So can be very confusing interface now because if you do choose to remove it from the project, again, it looks almost the same. We just can't see our section selector here. So hotly debated, curious your thoughts. Feel free to post it in the Q&A, what you think. So that is what's going on with subtasks right now. With that said, there is an exciting update with subtasks as well that I want to talk about. You will notice that you now have a filter and sort option on subtasks. So another thing that a lot of people have commented on in the past is that when you mark a subtask complete, it does not disappear from this list. And if you have particularly long list of subtasks, this can look kind of messy. So with this new filter and sort option, you actually can choose to hide completed. And so now I am actually only going to see the two that are incomplete, but I am still seeing this tracker here that there are 1 out of 3 subtasks. I'm sorry, there are 1 out of 3 subtasks. There's 1 subtask complete out of 3 total. If I mark a second one complete, you'll see that's changing to 2 total. Something to keep in mind, if we look at our other options here, you have some other filters. You can also sort by the due date. Again, very exciting for a lot of users. There previously was really no way to organize the subtasks. They were simply just showing in the way that you wrote them. Now you can sort them by their due date or even by their assignee alphabetically. Similar to the way that your comments tab and your all activity tab works, or your oldest comment versus your newest comment showing at the top works, this is working the same way. This is just by user, and it will remember your last settings. So right now I have the hide completed setting on. And so if I go into another task that has subtasks, you will see that that filter is still applied. So if I mark a task complete, that is going to disappear. It's going to remember whatever I had last. So if I then remove this or I sort it by due date, this is going to apply as I move across to different tasks within Asana. So one confusing update about subtasks, but then one very exciting update about subtasks. All right, moving to the project level, another feature that people have been asking about for a long time is templates for project status updates. Very exciting. So a little bit of context for those of you who might not be using project status updates. We are talking about this feature here where you are able to post narrative updates about how this project is doing. So we're looking here at the latest update that has been made, and we can choose to post a new update, and we can type in here how it's going, and we can create additional sections. This particular example only has just one section for summary, but we could have more. And so people have been asking for a long time, I don't want to have to recreate the wheel every single time I create a new project and define this status update. So how this works, I'm going to go back to our project. This is going to be along with everything else that you want to customize in your customize menu. You now have status updates. Super exciting. When you go to the status updates area, you will be prompted to either create a brand new one specific to this project, or you'll notice that you have this browse library. So if I go to browse library, you'll be able to see any other template status updates that have been created for other projects, and you can choose to add this one here. So I can grab this status update from that library, or I can choose to make my own, and you'll have here the ability to create some sections, to drag in those widgets that you're used to using, and whatever you're wanting to see. You can even template the status itself. All right, so once you have added the status template here to our customize area of the project, when you go to actually post a new status update, you will see up here you now have some options, draft with AI versus using that status template that we just added to the project. Or again, that opportunity to select a new template. And I will also take a moment to say that if you have not, let's say you just wrote a status update, or you're looking at one, you have the ability to convert that to a new template as well. So a couple of different places where you can choose to create this template. The last comment I'll make about that, if you do have access to this new navigation pane, quick note, not everybody does. It's coming soon, I promise, but not everybody will have a navigation pane that looks like mine, unfortunately. If you do have this one in your workflow area, you do have status templates right here. So just like everything else we're able to see in a library, you can see your status templates to create more, to browse what other people have created, and take a look at what you have access to. Wonderful. All right, and let's see what's next. We are going to talk about inbox filters. So there have been some more inbox filters that have been coming out, and specifically, this is going to be for messages and status updates. So if we click on this filter here, you have the add filter button here. You have a lot more options. And right here, we have this messages and status updates. So if we wanted to focus specifically on notifications coming from one of those two, you can add that filter. All right, another exciting update is you can now add benchmark lines to charts. Again, another one that we have been waiting for a while. If we go to one of our charts, and let's say we want to add a benchmark here for this particular chart, we have this down at the bottom under our data annotations. Data labels we're used to. This also used to be up here at the top. So you'll notice that it's down here at the bottom now, and you have this add benchmark line, and you can choose what that value is. You can give it a value, and then you can, that's a little bit low. Let's raise that up. And then we can also give it a label. Our goal. Awesome, very exciting. And then again, this other option to show benchmark details only if you hover. So that's specifically for that label. Okay, very exciting. The next one we have, we're going to go back to tasks and rules again. So let's go grab my favorite project. If you have worked with me at all, I'm always using this Sydney project. The tasks is in any of these projects rule condition. So we're going to go take a look at a rule here. And we're specifically talking about the condition if task is in any of these projects. So we will search for our project and we have this new condition. So this is especially powerful if you have tasks that are multi-homed. And so we want to run this rule if the task is multi-homed in one or more projects. So if this is in the Paris project, if this is in the London project, etc. So exciting new criteria here that we can add to our rules. Another very exciting feature that I've actually already used multiple times is back in our portfolios. So if we go take a look at our marketing tour events portfolio, something that is new that people have been asking for is, you'll notice this capacity tab. So the capacity plan in Asana has historically only been available for enterprise customers, and it's specifically a universal capacity in your strategy area or simply your resourcing area. So you do not need to click on strategy if you do not have this new navigation pane, as I mentioned earlier. So for capacity planning, historically, you would go to this resourcing area and you would create essentially a universal capacity workload. I should not say both those words together in Asana. Those mean different things. You could create a capacity view here in the resourcing area. So what has been released is that now we can focus on one specific portfolio. So we can go straight to the capacity for this particular portfolio, and we can give allotments to specific users as well as placeholders. And if we do give these allotments within the portfolio, these do carry over to any capacity plans we create in that universal reporting area. So super helpful. A lot of people have been wanting to see this at the portfolio level. You'll notice you're also still seeing the milestones on this view. This is unique to the portfolio capacity view. To add this capacity view, it's just like adding any other view to your portfolios. It will show up on your tab here. All right. Another quick note, this is something small but just helpful to understand if anyone was multi-selecting tasks within a project, and let's get my toolbar to go away. Whenever you multi-select, you're going to get your dialog box here at the bottom, and you have the ability to edit fields from this dialog box, and in the past, it would actually show fields from multi-homed projects. That is no longer the case. This is now only going to show the fields in the actual project you are viewing. So just a small change in case anybody noticed that or was needing to change fields in other projects. For now, we're only going to see the library fields or this specific project's fields. Okay, and then lastly, I have one other permissions update. Again, that doesn't really need a screen share, but when it comes to AI Studio rules, there has always been a question about the rule that's running. How do we know the access that it has? And so it is official. The model for these AI Studio rules are going to have the access of the rule owner. So whoever sets up the rule and their access in that rule is what AI Studio will be able to access. So just an important note to make as you guys are setting up rules if you're worried about rules running by users who don't have access to things. If you don't want them to be able to automate something that would access information outside of the project, this is just something to keep in mind. But by and large, usually people want rules to continue to function no matter who is firing them. That's why we set up the rule. We want to be able to automate things and keep things moving through the workflow. So just want to confirm for you all here that those rules and those access are based on the rule builder themselves. So I will stop my screen share as we do just a short conclusion. Thank everyone for coming. Feel free to post anything as I am wrapping up here if you think of any last minute questions, or as I said at the beginning of the call, don't hesitate to reach out to us, either myself or Apolline. We are so glad to have you here. Apolline just posted in the chat as well to sign up for our newsletter. So we do share this video in our newsletter every single month. We also include tips and tricks, other things we know might be going on in Asana, or fun anecdotes and whatnot. So we invite you to register to our newsletter that is in the chat there. And we look forward to seeing you all next month and seeing what Asana has come up with since then. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.